of our lives, we have no existence. And because we don't know Allah, know God, and know ourselves, we don't know one another. Look, when I see you, I know who I'm looking at. There's not one of you in this place that I don't love. I may never have met you before, but when I see you, I know who I'm looking at. And I know that I have a duty by you. And you will never find me disrespecting any of you because I know who you are. It makes no difference how young or how old. You are from Allah. Listen now. And therefore, the essence of you is Him. I'm going to say that again. You are from Allah. Therefore, the essence of you is Him. So you are not only able to become a human being, but if you evolve properly, you can become an expression of, a manifestation of the divine characteristics of God Himself. Listen. So the Bible says, how can you love God whom you have never seen and hate your brother whom you see every day? Let's not just say it, let's understand it more. Listen, how can you love God whom you've never seen and hate your brother whom you see every day? Now the principal words in this is God and brother. And you have love and hate. Two opposites. But God and brother are not opposite. God and brother are similar, but you love one that you've never seen and hate the other whom you see every day. Well, now what Allah is saying to us is when you hate your brother, in whom is the essence of God, you are hating God. So the question is asked, how can you love God whom you've never seen and hate your brother in whom God is? And you see Him every day. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, every time I see a black man, I'm looking at God.
You are now tuned in to the Respectful Life radio broadcast with your host, Brother Keith Muhammad. This program is dedicated to the unity and upliftment of the Black community. Our goal is to change the world, one mind at a time.
Peace and blessings. Welcome once again to the Respectful Life radio broadcast. I'm your host, Brother Keith Muhammad, coming to you live via cmpradio.net. Thankful and grateful to Almighty God Allah once again for the opportunity to come via this platform that has been founded and operated in the vision of our good brother Jean-Pierre, who started this a few years ago, that is designed to help cultivate mature positivity in the city of Chester, Delaware County, and across the world, in particular as it pertains to our people, the Black man and woman of America, who are in most need of some mature positivity in this critical hour in which we live. So thank you all for tuning in. We ask that you share this feed, ask your family, friends, loved ones to tune in. There's a lot going on here in the Delaware Valley, in Philadelphia in particular, with the latest events of a police shooting. There's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot going on with the current national election that is about to take place. We're down to the wire as it pertains to that, and so much more. The COVID virus is escalating again at numbers even beyond the early stages of the pandemic. So it reminds me of the song I've been listening to a lot over the last week. Marvin Gaye sang a song back, I believe it was in '71. He came out with the release, What's Going On? And we see the chaos, we see the confusion, we see the death, we see what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said is the chaotic breakup and fall of a world. And whether we know it or not, we are witnessing the sinking of the Titanic. We are witnessing the breakup of a great empire, a great nation that was once the envy of the world. I know Trump talks about making America great again. Well, at one time it was great, not for you and I, but great for white people. What we are witnessing is like unto the fall of Rome. What we are witnessing is like the British Empire that was so large, so vast, that the sun never set on it. Now it's a tiny little place over there in Europe. So I hope we understand what's going on. And if not, I suggest that you tune in, not only to the Respect for Life radio broadcast, but I suggest that you keep up with the latest news and current events that are taking place. And you can read about it in the Final Call newspaper each and every week that comes to you from its illustrious publisher, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. You can get that paper from the brothers that are in the city of Chester, in the city of Philadelphia, in every major and even small city where our people are all across America. But you can also get that paper via Final Call digital.com, where you can go on there and get your digital subscription to the Final Call, so you can get it every Tuesday like I did today, to get your latest headlines and news and information. I know you watch CNN, I know you watch Fox, and maybe we don't, but maybe you just get your news and information from your timeline. You know, that becomes the greatest source today. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram seems to be the source of information, in particular for our younger generation. And with CNN, with Fox, with MSNBC, and all the other news sources, Trump tells the truth about one thing. What we get often is fake news. What we get often, if not every time, is a news story with a perspective that is skewed and colored to benefit a certain mindset, a certain class of people, versus giving us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. But here on Respect for Life, we desire, as we said in our opening, to help change the world one mind at a time. And our mantra here at Respect for Life is whoever controls the diameter of your, whoever prescribes the diameter of your thinking controls the circumference of your activities. So we see the uprising, we see the chaos, we see the confusion, but it's not unexpected by those who have socially conditioned the masses of the people to respond a certain way to certain circumstances. So we want to deprogram the prescription that was given to us as to how we think, especially about how we think about ourselves. So brothers and sisters, there's a lot, as we said, going on. We always like to start with current news stories from the Final Call and from other sources, just to give us a little briefing. And of course, we haven't been on for the last couple weeks. So we have several stories that may have broken over the 2 or 3 week span that we haven't been on. But we want to cover one story that is an international story that got a lot of press via social media last week in particular, but it's in the current edition of the Final Call newspaper, and it deals with the country of Nigeria, where there's a current protest and movement, mainly among young people, and they're protesting against something called SARS. And I find it interesting that it's called SARS, and we know this COVID virus is called SARS. This COVID virus pandemic that spread around the world is also called SARS. But this particular SARS that is the focus of our young people in Nigeria is a protest to disband a unit that's called SARS, which stands for Special Anti-Robbery Squad. So it's the police. And there's an uprising that took place, or there's protests that took place. And in particular, on the 20th, I believe, of October, you had an outcry go around the world because the young people in particular were protesting, and gunfire and shooting took place. And there's differing stories, but I want to read just a few things from the current edition of the Final Call on this story. You say, well, Brother Keith, why are we talking about Nigeria? You know, shooting going on in Chester, shooting going on in Philadelphia. But we have to understand that these shootings, these protests, these conditions that are going on locally are not isolated incidences. The things that are going on around the world are all tied. It's all tied to a mindset that is one of white supremacy that has produced conditions and circumstances amongst 85 to 90% of the masses of the people who have to respond and act in a certain way that produces the kind of violence, the kind of need to protest, and then you have the oppressive regimes that respond in certain ways. So I'm like, Brother Jabril, yes, sir, I love you, nephew. The Nigerian protests, the headline of the Final Call says, Nigeria protesters break curfew amid gunfire chaos in Lagos. Lagos, Nigeria. Nigerian protesters demanding an end to police brutality. So you see, it's the same. They say same. An end to police brutality. Defied a curfew and faced off with the security forces October 21st as gunfire rang out and fires burned in Lagos a day after shots were fired into a crowd of demonstrators. It says it's not clear if any protesters were killed on October the 20th in that night shooting at the Lekki Toll Plaza in the West African country's sprawling commercial capital. So a shooting took place on the 20th. There are varying reports. Many people coming across social media and others say that people were killed. You have conflicting reports going out. It says the Lagos governor said many were injured, but no one was killed, although Amnesty International and the UN's High Commissioner for Human Rights said both said people died and the security forces were responsible. The military has denied it was responsible. So the people are protesting over heavy-handed policing by this special anti-robbery squad known as SARS. All right. And just like here in America, the people come out, the people protest. For all practical purposes, they're saying the protest was peaceful. And then there are reports that power was cut, lights were turned off, cameras were cut, and shooting started. And the people say it started with the military. The military's denying it. People are saying that people were killed and murdered. The officials are saying that people were injured, but no one died. So this is something that's going on. There's a protest to end this special unit. Now, there was just a unit in in Los Angeles that was identified and talked about. It escapes my mind what the name of that unit was, but all across America, the police forces are filled, if not with special units, filled with mindsets of those who have an attitude and spirit toward our people in particular that has total disrespect for the life of Black people, total disrespect for our community, and really some take the job just so they can do what they have in their heart to do, which is shoot and kill Black people and people of color all over this country. So it's no different in Nigeria, a Black nation. But you have people, as Public Enemy said many years ago, every brother ain't a brother. And because of the mind, and that's why we have to stress and continue to stress we want to change how we think, because every action is preceded by a thought. The gun violence in our community is produced by circumstances, environmentally, socially engineered, that produces a mentality amongst us that causes us to see little to no value in our own life. And if I have no value in my life, then Lord help you, because I'm no way going to value your life. And we'll talk a little more in a few minutes. But certainly, if I don't value me, then your life has no value. And that means I'll kill you over nothing, or something that has apparent greater value than your life. What is a black life worth in America? What is a black life worth in this world? We got to think about that. So this story is going on. It calmed down now. The news is not covering it. You don't hear much about it. Nigeria is a large country, 196 million people, and even though Nigeria has massive oil wealth and is one of Africa's largest economies, many of its 196 million people face high levels of poverty and lack of basic services because of rampant graft, according to rights groups. Nigerians, have flooded Twitter in recent weeks with accounts of everyday indignities and outright abuse they face, from being regularly shaken down by police for bribes to beating and even killings. All right. So no one knows how many people were killed, but the governor there says that it was only 25 people injured. He said he went to the mortuaries and didn't find any bodies. But we always got to consider the source as it pertains to news reporting, as we just said. So these shootings, it says the last thing I want to talk about in this story, the Lakeith shooting came after 2 chaotic weeks of social unrest. On October 20th, authorities said nearly 2,000 inmates had broken out of jail after crowds attacked 2 correctional facilities a day earlier. So it's a lot going on. So the protesters look like they attacked the jails and let the inmates out in certain areas. 2,000 inmates, they say, escaped a particular prison, and that preceded the unrest and the violence on the 20th, which led to more protests and things that are going on now. So I wanted to bring that story because, again, what we have to get out of is the thought of being a local so-called Negro. Some of us only identify with a section of our little town. Some of us only identify with our city. Some of us may identify being from the East Coast. Some of us may identify being with from the West, from the South, Midwest, wherever it may be, or we may say we're American. We may say we're African. But the reality is we are universal people. We are the original people of the planet, and it all belongs to us. And we should identify with being who and what we are and what we've been made by our Creator. So I wanted to share that from the Final Call. Make sure you get your latest copy of the Final Call newspaper. Support the effort of the brothers who are out in the community, even in the midst of the pandemic, doing a duty to deliver what we not only believe, but we know is a life-changing message, because it changed our lives for the better. And the newspaper alone will give you a perspective on life that will broaden your horizon, break through that prescription that makes us think a certain way and see the world totally different than how we saw it before. So make sure we get that Final Call. The other thing, of course, that's the hottest news item right now, took place right here. I'm in Philadelphia, in West Philadelphia, Southwest, right around 61st and Locust. A young black man was gunned down. And now most of us have probably witnessed this. Walter Wallace Jr. Was murdered by 2 police officers in front of his mother and his neighbors in broad daylight yesterday in West Philadelphia. Now, if you saw the video, you understand and see the horrible, really gut-wrenching scene of seeing another black man gunned down, compounded with the fact that his mother is there screaming in response to this this killing of her son by two officers who took the action, the most deadly and drastic action they could take, in my mind, and watching the video, because these two men were scared to death, it appears, and had no value for the life of the man that they shot and killed. His mother and another person was trying to intervene to try to stop him and try to stop the police from killing him. So the district attorney had a press conference not too long ago. The police commissioner was on scene last night. And of course, our people are angry, fed up, sick and tired of being sick and tired, took to the streets last night. And again, the news, although it's reporting and showing our brother being gunned down, of course, the focus and the uproar is about property being destroyed, property maybe being looted. But what's property, as I heard someone on the news say, compared to a human life? And unfortunately, when people feel they have no other recourse, they revert to certain actions because they're just frustrated, angry, and they vent in various ways. But the real focus should be on the Black man that was gunned down by the police. The real focus should be on the lack of value placed on human life in general, but more drastically, no value being placed on the Black man and woman of America and Black people in general around the world, based on a world of white supremacy and Black inferiority in the minds of the people. Unfortunately, even Black people, we see ourselves as less than and place little to no value on our lives. And this has to end, because he who gave us life places greater value on our life than we understand. So this is another tragedy. We're waiting to hear and see what takes place as it pertains to the DA's office, whether or not they're going to press charges. I'm very skeptical. I'm very, I doubt that there'll be any serious charges pressed against these police officers based on the fact that they're saying he had a knife, and these cowardly men with guns in their hands, at least 10 to 12, maybe a greater distance, feet between him and them. Now they're saying, just came out, reported that the police officers didn't have tasers. But even if you didn't have a taser, you had nightsticks. And this man had a small knife because it couldn't have been too big, because I couldn't see it in the video. You had other recourses to deal with a man that, from what they're saying, had a mental issue, a mental episode going on. And unfortunately, we still trust the police department. And from what they're saying, the call was made. I don't know if a call, one report I read says she called for an ambulance, but the police arrived earlier. Some say she called the police, calling for help and trying to handle her son, who was going through a mental episode. But I mean, if we have any other recourse, brothers and sisters, and you're having a circumstance with somebody you love, a situation that may even be somewhat dangerous, you have to think long and hard before calling the police on your loved one. There was a story, I believe it was in New York, somewhere not long ago, that surfaced. It took place a little while ago, where a brother called the police on his brother, and we saw a video of a man, he was naked in the street, obviously having mental issues, get murdered, with someone, again, putting a bag on his head, suffocating him, on top of him in the middle of the snow. I mean, unless your life is in grave danger, or you have an intruder, you have some violent act taking place, we got to think about calling the police on the people we care about, because 99 out of 100 times that officer coming is not going to have the value on the life that you have on it. And where you may want help, they come seeing a grave threat. And as we see over and over again, there's little hesitancy to use deadly force as it pertains and when it comes to our people. So that's another sad tragedy. Protests are taking place right now in the city of Philadelphia. We don't know how it's going to escalate. Of course, when the police come out or protesters come out, just like in the case in Nigeria, things often get tense. The military or the militarized police forces in America are like military forces. Many of the military or the police in America have been sent to Israel to be trained by their Gestapo, cruel, abusive, deadly military force as they deal with the Palestinians in that conflict there in the Middle East, as they call it. So we have a militarized police. We have a disrespect for human life, a grave disrespect for Black life. And then you have fear in the hearts of men who have no, in most cases, connection or identity with the communities in which they're policing. So this is a big problem. And this problem, along with the many other problems that we have here in America as a people, we may feel that we're going to get help in the national election coming up. I don't know why. Says Sister Khadijah, don't call the police for me ever. I hear you. Me either. You know, if unless it's some, like I say, if it's a gun battle going on, something like that, and or some intruder breaking in your house, I can see that. But if you got an issue with your loved one and you need help, it's a dangerous, dicey situation. Can you imagine what that brother felt who called the cops on his brother and his brother's dead? Can you imagine the pain of this mother who now has lost her life, and in losing, lost the life of her son, pardon me. And then after all of it is done and said, she has to reflect on, if the reports are true, that she actually is the one that called the police for help. I can't even begin to imagine the kind of pain that would produce in a parent. But it's important. It's important that we keep ourselves, really strategizing. There was a march in Chester this past Saturday, anti-violence march. There are various efforts going on. Our own Brother Pierre, CMP Radio, is part of a new initiative instituted by the DA's office to help try to pull out of the fire some of our young people who are on the road or in a position that may cause them to end up in jeopardy or in some kind of legal or police type activity if they don't make a turn. But what it's going to take more than anything is unity to address the circumstances and the conditions that permeate our community. And the reality is, if we think that Joe Biden getting into the office of presidency is going to make some kind of change, I think we've been sleeping under a rock and have had our head in the sand like an ostrich, or we just really are that foolish to believe that after 400 years of Democrats and Republicans, or as my brother Nori likes to call them, Democrats and Republicans, either one of them being in office is going to make a substantial difference in our lives, in the way of relieving the oppressive state of white supremacy in America. You can't change this tree called white supremacy, you got to uproot it. If the tree is an apple tree, you can't expect the apple tree to produce oranges. I don't care how much you hope and pray that the orange is going to come from an apple tree. I don't care how much you fertilize it and water it. I don't care how much you break off branches and let new branches grow. I don't care what you do. An apple tree is not going to produce oranges. I hope you get the point I'm making. Because no matter what we do, even when we put a black face on this system, see, we think, you know, and I'm not trying to get into a voting argument with people. And I know most who watch the show aren't of that mindset anyway, but the reality is, if we think that a new face in the seat of the presidency is going to make a difference in the system of white supremacy, we're greatly deceived. You know, it's like having a spider's web in your house, and you can knock that spider web down every day. But if you don't get rid of the spider, the web will be back. And we have people saying, you know, it's the system, it's the system. But the system came out of the hearts and minds of men. And the system is permeated and continued and flourishes and grows and matures and is more sophisticated because of the hearts and minds of men. It's not operating on automatic pilot, though it looks like it and appears like it. And some of us have been so programmed, we operate like that. But believe me, there's a wicked mindset that is in people that are behind the scenes producing the outcomes that we see. And the evidence is, as soon as you get people, black people in particular, and even some well-meaning white people, if you can find them, who stand up and begin to try and dismantle or do something significant to overthrow, or even just say, look, I'm tired of it, I want to get away from it, let's do for self, then you have an enemy come out to stop that effort. You just try to do something for yourself. Try to get your people together. Try to organize and strategize and build something, and just do your thing, and don't be bothered with other people. Watch they come and try to see what you're doing, interfere with what you're doing, and stop what you're doing if it's something they know can threaten their world and their reality. So, you know, this shooting has capped off an emotional week for me and many of us in the city of Chester. And the gun violence last week, a 62-year-old woman driving down the street, gunned down. The senseless killings that are going on in our community, and personally within our family of faith, in Muhammad's study group, a young brother tragically lost his life, Brother Bakir. We had to bury him yesterday. And then I come home from that and see a black man gunned down on the internet, you know, and all we can do is redetermine in our heart and mind. You know, we can't be like Trump and his administration saying they can't control the virus. And many of us say, what can we do? We can't control what's going on in our community, but that's not true. We cannot control it doing what we've been doing. We cannot control it thinking and acting like we've been thinking and acting. We cannot control it with an individualistic, separatist mindset. Because if we try to attack it just from my little community organization, I'll save one or two. If I try to attack it just from my little church or mosque, I'll save one or two or a few. And that's all good. But in order to stop this tidal wave, we need to build a huge dam. In order to stop this flood, we need to build a great levee. We need to get together as a community, regardless of labels. We need to do all we can to stop the killing, regardless of where it's coming from, the police or from our own ignorant selves. We have to take a stand today. We have to do what is necessary to minimize the opportunity for our babies. As I watched hundreds of young people, I don't know how many came through the funeral home yesterday, but I watched many of our babies come in that funeral home without a parent, without an older adult. They must have been 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old little boys and girls walking up to a casket to see their friend lying in that casket. See? And this is not unusual, and is becoming, not becoming, has become the norm for our young people. See, this is something that we have accepted as a community. And even if you are not complicit in doing that which causes the activities, if we're not actively engaged in trying to stop it and are not willing to subvert our egos, our personal agendas, in order to come together and work, then we part of the problem. So, pardon me, but it's really something that too many of us, and I can't absolve myself of guilt, we take too nonchalant an attitude, or we throw up our hands. Like another Marvin Gaye said, throw up your hands, make me want to holler. Some of us just feel like, we can't do anything. And if that's my mindset, we won't do anything. We can't do anything. See, can't is a word we got to take out of our vocabulary. There's nothing we can't accomplish with unity. With unity and a collective effort, with love at the root and good intentions, we can accomplish whatever we will. Marcus Garvey said it, up you mighty nation, you can accomplish what you will. And that term is still true to this day, but we got to see ourselves as a community, act like a community, function like a community, function like a family, function like a nation, function like a people who can only depend on themselves. Because the truth is, we can't depend on nobody but God and ourselves. This system and whoever is sitting in the seats of authority in this system will not and cannot do for us what needs to be done. I don't care how well intended they are. Now, they can help, but we can't sit back and expect the mayor, the governor, or the president to do for us what we're not willing to get up and do for ourselves. Yes, they can do things to alleviate some pain. They can do things to help us to accomplish what we want to accomplish. But the reality is, if we're doing nothing, they can't help us do nothing. God can't even help us do nothing. The old saying is, God helps those, come on, somebody help me out, who help themselves. So brothers and sisters, we'll keep our eyes and ears open. It's likely to be more uprising this evening in Philadelphia, and even may have protests going on nationwide as this video circulates around the globe, because time and circumstances are really forcing an end to something that needed to be ended long time ago. You know, so I say we need to walk, as we say, with alertness. We have to be very vigilant, and we need to get to being proactive in trying to make incremental changes, first in our personal lives, in the lives of our family, in the lives of our neighborhood and community, start on our block. And we need to come together with other men and women of like mind and work together. It's not going to change overnight, but we can't do the disservice to our young people to leave them where we at right now when they get older, have to fight the fight that we should have been fighting so that they can be further down the road than we are right now. So don't put all your eggs in the election basket, please, because you're going to have a whole lot of broke eggs and it won't be good for nothing. All right? You want to vote? Fine, go vote. You want to vote for Biden? Fine, go vote for Biden. You want to vote for Trump? I know people start shooting arrows at me. I say that. Go vote for Trump if that's what you feel your civic duty is. The other story I didn't get to talk about, I was going to talk about last week, was Ice Cube. Here's a brother that saw what happened and what has been happening. And after the George Floyd murder and uprising and the lack of structural, organized platform being presented to the politicians, came up with his contract with Black America. And he went to Biden campaign and he went to Trump's campaign. And from what he says, the Biden campaign said, okay, yeah, it sounds good, but we'll talk to you after the election. Trump's people said, oh, come on in, let's see. I'm going to look at this contract with Black America. Oh, let me see what it looks like. Okay. Hey, Ice Cube, can we take this from your plan and implement it to our platinum plan, as they call it? And Ice Cube said, sure, if you're going to try to help my people. See? And then, of course, being sly politicians, the Trump campaign promoted this interaction with Ice Cube and made it look like Ice Cube was, you know, down with the Trump campaign, and so unsophisticated and really emotional Negroes have gone crazy trying to go after Ice Cube as though he endorsed Trump. And I mean, you got all these, you know, silly Negroes, if you ask me, want to, you know, eviscerate our brother and call him all kinds of names because he put a platform before two people. That's what wisdom and that's what people with sense do. You don't hear the Jewish community, Asian community, and any other community out here talking about we got to get this one out and that one in, this one out and that one in. They give a scorecard for every, I watched it, I looked online, I saw the Jewish scorecard for all the candidates. This is when the primaries were going on. And they had a score for each candidate, in the Democrats and the Republicans, as it pertained to Jewish issues and Jewish concerns. And they had this mark. They say the strength of this one, the weakness of that one, they're for this, they're against that, and how it impacts their community. See, that's wisdom. But we so silly and immature in politics, it's all or nothing. We got to be Democrat. And if you ain't Democrat, you know, if you don't vote, this is what they tell you, then that's a vote for Trump, huh? Get out to vote, get out to vote. Okay. If you tell them you going to vote, but you're going to vote for Trump, then they really going to have a problem with you. See? But whoever we vote for, we shouldn't just give our vote away with no qualification. That's just foolish. That's why you keep getting taken advantage of. We keep getting taken advantage of as a community. So my point, though, is that we can't expect the people in office to do something we're not willing to dig, pull up our sleeves, go to work, sacrifice, suffer to do for us in our communities. So, you know, that's something that we have to become passionate about. You know, as passionate as we talk about sports in the barbershop, even though with COVID-19 can't sit around the barbershop no more, It took away a sacred space for the black man. But we argue on the internet about LeBron James and Michael Jordan, and we'll do this and that. And I understand, you know, sport and play can take away and give you some leisure, and there's nothing wrong in general. But if we're passionate about sport and play and we'll argue and fuss and even fight over this team or that team and this issue and that issue, but we very dispassionate, very unemotional, and maybe because we're numb over what's going on in our community, or we feel there's no hope. But I'm here to say there is hope, but we can't put our hope in something that has never came to our rescue, but is the very cause of our problem. We put our hope in God and in ourselves, and we have to go to work, roll up our sleeves, come together, and take it. They say the journey of 1,000 miles starts with what? One step. So we got to take small steps, but we got to hurry up because we behind time, and we got to do all we can to pull our people out the fire. So the last thing, as we get ready to go into the last portion of our program, as I was thinking about everything that's going on, you know, a thought came to my mind. And, you know, we like to put so much stock in this world and in the whole people, and the whole system of things. You know, we got faith. We got a lot of faith. And I can't say black people got a lot of faith in God. And we got a lot of faith in white people. Yeah, we got a lot of faith in white people. Because we think that they're going to change. And even the so-called good ones that we know, you know, we'll stand up on a soapbox and, you know, shout it to the mountaintop about these good ones. So when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, my teacher, and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, since the 30s, have been teaching a truth that hasn't been disproved. Now, you got to understand it deeper than many of us surfacely understand it, but he stood up and said the white man was not a devil, but the devil. And this is something that, you know, has been a controversial aspect of the teachings of the Nation of Islam. And right now, even when I just said it, I'm sure some of us are ready to type. Maybe if we're not watching it live, when we watch it as a recording. But it wasn't a white man that broke in my house last night. It wasn't a white man that's doing the shooting and looting. No, it's not a physical white man, but it's a black man with a white mind. But anyway, that's not my focus on whether he's the devil or not. My question that you see on the screen, or will see in a minute, my feed is a little ahead of yours, is, well, you'll see it, I guess, when you hear it. Can white people live in a world without white supremacy? What do you think? Do you think white people can exist without white privilege and white supremacy being the order of the day? Let's find an experiment somewhere on the planet. Can you find where white people are living under black rule, not in face or color, but true black rulership and principles, and they live there satisfied without controlling the strings behind the scene, without being in control of the economy or in control of the land? Because you got white people in South Africa that came and took over. The Dutch mainly came. You got all of the continent of Africa. You got white people all over Africa, but that's because they colonized it, took it over, slaughtered and murdered millions upon millions of Africans. But I have to raise the question, and maybe you can raise it. I don't know if any white people watch this show, but you got to think about this. Can you really live? Do you think white people can live in a world? And some of us black people have a problem living in a world without white supremacy, because to it. But the reality is, I don't think they can do it, because from my teacher, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and his teacher, we are taught that they were made to rule over us, and they can't really accept us in rulership over them. And if they are not in a system such as the one they are, they will go to war to create it. And that's their history on the planet. You can take it or leave it alone. Since they've been on the planet, they came out the caves, they've been at war with civilization, and they didn't stop until they were able to conquer the entire globe. And now they have mastered the original people all over the planet using tricks and lies and murder. And now they've had a world that's been a heaven, as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan sang the song many years ago, a white man's heaven is a black man's hell. They had the world as their playground. And once we got into the last century and we start having uprisings and this world's time was up, and they started to go to war with themselves, even though they've been at war since they've been on the planet. But World War I, World War II, and all the conflicts and wars in between and since, and you see the economic crumbling now, you see this world is in trouble. But as this world chaotically breaks up, I doubt very seriously, and some of us who think that they're good friends, even their husband and wives, and I'm not saying you can't find some, but the general nature of the Caucasian people is that they can't accept black rulership. That's why Trump is in office right now. Because Barack Obama was in office for 8 years. Yes, Sister Shakaya, they see their ruling slipping away, and they're afraid now. They called it a backlash from Obama. And black people came out in droves and white people came out in droves, young white people in particular, to help put him in office. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has talked about the younger generation because of the brilliance of black people, because of God's plan overall. Younger white people have lost many of the things that their parents and foreparents have placed in them as it pertains to black people, because they're growing up with black heroes, whether it's rap entertainers or basketball players. And because the population, in particular in America, is growing more and more black and brown versus white, and soon they'll be the minority in number in this country. And then a black face got on white affairs, and Barack Obama was in office. He was selected before he was elected, as the minister said, and he was allowed to, believe me, if certain people didn't want it, Barack would have never became president. Just know that, okay? But anyway, and he was put in office for 8 years. And I mean, the ignorant amongst the white were outraged because it looked like what they fear most, black people taking over, black people getting ahead. And then you had an ignorant, overt racist rather than a slick, covert racist put in the presidency office. And this caused an uproar now in the 4 years Trump have been in. The emboldened white supremacist mindset has manifested itself in many ways. He set the stage for many things, most importantly, the fall of America. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said it 4 years ago. He said Trump will take America to hell in a rocket ship. And we on that rocket right now. And we better jump off quick. And if you think Biden getting in is going to turn the rocket ship around, nope, not going to happen. He's a covert racist, but Trump done let the cat out the bag. And Biden ain't going to be able to put it back in the bag. Because the reality is those militias and those people you see plotting to kill the governor or kidnap the governor in Michigan, those that you see emboldened to walk around with their AR-15s, those that are staunch Trump supporters, if Trump loses this election, he going to cry. Matter of fact, he already crying fraud, right? What do you think they're going to do? You've even seen some videos on the internet talking about it, what they're going to do if they steal this election from Trump. So it's going to be interesting. But I say for us, we got to take precautions. And we have to prepare our exodus. We have to prepare to get our life raft to get off the Titanic. I know the Titanic was the greatest ship at one time and some fantastical feat and all that, but it's sinking. So why you want to stay on it? You be like them people in the movie Titanic. They playing the violin and playing music while the ship is going down. No, you better get your life raft and jump off. And the best way we can jump off is here mentally. Because some of us right now are suffering great depression. Some of us are suffering great anxiety. And a lot of it has to do with the climate that's been produced by the news media, the climate that is real in our communities, and the fear. Some of us are frightened. See, the real problem is why Ice Cube got all this backlash, because you got scared to death Negroes that's on TV, that's on the internet, that's lap dogs for the Democratic Party, and just emotionally and really, even though many of them are very intelligent and intellectual, they're very, very, very ignorant as it pertains to the nature and reality of a people and a system that has never cared and will never care and never put priority on Black life. So, I don't think. Matter of fact, I know I'm not. I don't it ain't even a question in my mind that they can't accept a world without white supremacy. Look at what they do. They going crazy because they can't. They got to wear a mask in a supermarket. We watch the videos every day. You got Karens going crazy, and you got people going crazy because they can't go out to the store. They can't go to the bar and drink. They can't go to a sporting event. They've been restricted for a few months, and they are comparing it to slavery. They're comparing it to slavery and being oppressed. So can you imagine if the playing field was even, they would go crazy. Because an even playing field, Black excellence and genius, creativity, stick-to-itiveness, and endurance. See, it's no way. See, what we got to understand as a people in America, Black people in particular, we the strongest of the strong because of what we've endured, not only physically, but psychologically and emotionally. What we endured physically was some of the worst trauma and treatment and affliction the world has ever known. But worse than the physical treatment was the psychological destruction of us as a people. The robbing and raping of us of our identity and culture, and removing from us any kind of love for self and kind, removing and robbing from us a desire to even want and do for ourselves, and causing us to fall in love, a sick love with our oppressor. And the enemy is so wickedly wise, he did it so skillfully, and he did it so thoroughly because he did it in the name of Jesus and God. He did it in the name of God. See? And he worked on us from all angles, educationally, socially, economically, religiously, and politically, to handicap us in such a way that only God can get us out of this condition. But the beautiful thing is, it has made us ripe and prepared to be the people that we are today, that God could choose us to do a special work in a special time. But I wanted to put the question out there, not that I really was uncertain of the answer, but I wanted to put it to make us think. Because we see what's going on, we see the circumstances in the world today, and just a little upset of their norm has caused them to go mad and crazy. And if they lose control And this is why Make America Great, Take Back Our Country, these are the words that are being used, because they want things to be like they were. Everything was grand when they could do and live and act the way they've lived for the last 400 years here in America. But now that their apple cart is being upset, you know, you see them pulling their hair out. You see them really going to all ends and all means necessary to regain what they think is control over the affairs of the world. But I'm here to say they're not going to be able to do it because of the time. So a world without white supremacy, man, you know, Black people, we can't even fathom what it's like, because it's outside of our realm of thought. Our paradigm is such that it is what it is. It's all we've ever known in our lifetime and the lifetimes of generations going back here in America for 400 years, and really going back for 4,000 to 6,000 years. We haven't known the world as it has been or was before the advent of this people on our planet. So most of us can't fathom what it would be like. Even though we saw Wakanda, we saw Black Panther, we got all excited about Black Panther. They couldn't even give us Black Panther and Wakanda without a white man being the one to fly the doggone ship and do, you know, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. The insecurity of these people, that they can't let, you know, if you have a Black movie with all Black people, it's like, that's racist, that's reverse racism. But they got shows and movies and TV where we're not even considered in it, you know? And it's like, wow. But to do the reverse drives them insane. So you got a picture where they're not in charge. You know, sometimes you might reach supervisor at your job. You might become over them in your capacity at work or something. How they act? You may have some friends, it's not too bad, but in general, it's hard for them to take you over them. And even if you're not over them, and you just don't, as we like to say, buck dance and laugh when ain't nothing funny and scratch when you don't itch, and you just talk like a man or woman with dignity and self-respect, they don't know how to deal with that. I watched a video yesterday of a brother. He's some kind of YouTube star or something. They were down in Arizona. He was going to shoot a video, and this Asian man walked up to him, asking him what he was doing. And the brother's like, you know, why you want to know? What business of it is yours? And he told him, you about to catch something. You don't want, I'm paraphrasing, but you know, he told him with sternness and like a man, what that man better do, better get out of his face and let him do what he gonna do. See, it's hard for them to take a Black man that don't scratch where he don't itch and don't shuffle and buck dance and don't, you know, pacify or sugarcoat his words when he talked to him. See, you know, and that's something we got to learn to do as Black men and women. And that's what comes with a new paradigm of thought, you know, so self-respect and knowledge of yourself. Because, you know, even though it's hard for us to fathom and believe this, there was a world without white supremacy. Now, it hasn't been in the last 6,000 years, but there was a world before them where there was no white supremacy because there were no Caucasian people on the planet. So, and there will be a world without white supremacy in the near future, I believe. And this is why we're witnessing everything we're witnessing right now. Because the greatest power in their world, America, is on her way out, and she's having a chaotic breakup. And what the Bible says is that when Satan cast out Satan, his kingdom cannot stand. And what you have is the divisive, chaotic circumstances going on in their world of politics, their world of economics, and really the economy of America is like eggshells. It looks good and it appears to be intact and strong, but it can crumble at any minute. And you see the fragile nature of the economy because it's just built on really nothing. Fiat money and a stock market that's just numbers on a screen that goes up and down, and your value of your 401k or your stock is like, whoo, I had 400,000 yesterday, now it's down to 200,000. What happened to my money? So it's built on really some factors and people and things that go on that could be manipulated, you know? But the economy is very, very fragile. They just had to print up, and they really didn't print it up. They just electronically sent it to your bank account that you got this money, this $1,200 stimulus. Trump put out some checks and sent out a few. And then the PUA money went out and people received boost in their unemployment. Where did that $500 trillion or whatever it was come from? It just magically appeared. See? What kind of economy is this? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said when they went off the gold standard, when money was no longer backed by silver and gold, that was the doom of the economy. Manufacturing went overseas. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that's the bedrock of an economy. You can't hardly find nothing. Now they say made in America. They're trying to pump up America. Make your product in America. But with the way the greed of America has become, the corporations don't want to pay fair wages, so they don't want to be here. Because when you come here, you got unions and people that will fight for fair wages for factory workers and things like that. So now it's like, look, man, I can't make that super large profit. Like, I need to be a trillionaire. Like, a billionaire ain't enough. I need trillions. So I got to keep my slave labor in place. America was built on free labor. Remember that. And the mind that rules America needs free or next to free labor. So $7.25, as we mentioned a few weeks ago, is still the national minimum wage, or $7.15, whatever it is. What kind of wage is that? That's slave labor. And you got people protesting to raise it. So states have taken actions, cities have taken actions, but the reality is the ruling powers of this world want to keep slave labor. So you have corporations who say, okay, my profit margin ain't high enough. I got to go overseas so I can rob people over there of their labor because the dollar's strength is greater. So this and that. But the reality is they want free or next to free labor. So they want prison industrial complex to keep growing. They want overseas corporations to keep being able to produce product, bring it over here. So some things Trump talked about is not crazy. Trump is crazy. Trump is a narcissist. Trump is a racist. He's all that. But sometimes he tells the truth about things and people just don't believe him because he lies so much, you know, and that's understandable because he's a liar. But every president that's been in office has been a liar. They just been better at it than Trump. So, you know, the economy is already in shambles. The educational system, they've dumbed down the American population. The only reason Trump can get in office is because you have a very dumbed down electorate, because, you know, any person with any kind of rationale or sense or sophisticated thought process or measure of understanding of how things work would not put a man like Trump in office. But there he is, and he may get back in. Don't jump out the windows, black people. Don't have a heart attack if Trump gets back in office. Guess what? We'll do what we've always been able to do in America, which is survive. But guess what? It's time to do more than survive. It's time to thrive. And even with Trump in office again, or Biden in office again, we're not going to thrive unless we do what is necessary to thrive. So I'm calling on all of us who listen to this now and going forward to let's put aside our differences. And if we don't have differences, we got to gird up our loins and we got to get the motivating factors in place. Something has to drive us. The Holy Quran has a verse that says every one of us have a goal toward which we turn ourselves. Something's driving us. We got to search out our heart and mind and see, what do I get up and do and live my life for? Why do I go to work every day? Why do I suffer the discrimination or the disrespect at my job maybe? Why do I go to a job I don't like? Why do I suffer and do this? Why do I catch a bus 4 a.m. to go all the way into the suburbs or go across town or go into another city? Why do I drive 30 miles a day to do this and do that? Something's driving us. Something's motivating us to do what we do. Many of us, it's a sense of responsibility and love for our family, to take care of them, and that's great. We should have that. But beyond our individual personal survival, we have to see the bigger picture, because if we don't do certain things, then the survival of those people we working for, the conditions under which they have to grow up and live, is not going to be better. It's going to be worse. So rather than just working a job for myself and my family, I got to see a bigger picture involved in this, because if we don't carve out a future, if we don't carve out something, if we don't make some substantial changes, if we don't attack the roots of white supremacy and uproot this tree with the help of God, then our children and our grandchildren will have a worse condition than what we're looking at right now. And Lord, have mercy on them if they have to go into something worse than what we see going on today. See? But it's not going to change through osmosis. It's not going to change just by praying. Allah says in the Holy Quran, and as I said it earlier, from the Christian perspective, God helps those who help themselves. The Quran says Allah never changes the condition of a people until they first change their own condition. And I said it earlier, God can't help you do nothing. So we have to build up an idea. And I heard my brother Ishmael, student minister Ishmael in Chicago on Sunday say it, there's an idea that has to give energy to our agenda and action that we put forth. So if we have a plan to help the city of Chester, if we have a plan, you see, this is where, understanding and really being able to put aside certain hangups. Chester is a gold mine. Chester is a great opportunity to build. And we may be behind, we behind the 8 ball, because, the developers and them already have acted and are acting to make it their utopia. But we still got some time to unite and lay down and put some stakes in the ground and develop our community to be a safe and decent place to live and build up our community. But it's going to take some work. It's going to take some sacrifice, and may even take some blood, sweat, and tears. But we've already spilling blood. We already having tears. At least let's put some work in to make it better, rather than throwing up our hands and saying, I just can't wait to get out of here. Where you going? Don't come to Philly. Don't go to Chicago, New York. And you're going to go in the suburbs and live with white people and find out that they don't want you there either. See, we have to do what we have to do, brothers and sisters. But it's just a thought. I went a little bit off on the topic and question that's there, but it's all relative, and having the advantage, and they just did a study. Oh man, I saw it last week and I intended to talk about it, and I don't know where I did it, but there's a sister who's a brilliant sister, a financial mathematician. I forget her official title. She works in the financial world, but she talked about the trillions of dollars lost in wealth and value in America just in the last 20 years because of white supremacy, because of the discrimination, the redlining, the lack of education opportunities, the various challenges that's normal for Black people in America has cost the American economy, I think it was almost $20 trillion in wealth or something like that, that would have been generated, meaning Black jobs, Black family wealth, all these things. And she broke it down. I'm gonna find that article. And next week, God willing, we'll talk about it, because she said she wanted to do it. She wanted to take the emotion out of it and deal with the math of it. And she broke it down with some of her colleagues. She's a financial person. I forget what company she worked for, but I read that article. I said, wow, I want to talk about it, because she made it very clear through numbers, based on housing, based on job, based on what your pay rate is, based on graduating from high school, graduating from college, all the different factors. That's the normal life of Black people. She calculated the trillions of dollars that the economy has lost. That means trillions of dollars that Black people have not been able to manifest and gain. Do y'all really think? Maybe we do, because we work with white supremacy. And I know it was a saying when I was coming up. I don't know if they still say it too much, but we used to say, a nigga ain't nothing, never was nothing, never will be nothing. See, that's a mindset. Do we really think we just that inferior? And that's why our condition is what it is? Do we really believe that? Or do we understand, and this is why I love what the sister did, that there is, don't believe Trump and Pence and them saying there's no systematic racism. And don't believe that the Democrats going to change systematic racism. They'll put a Band-Aid on some things. They'll give you a civil rights bill to make it look like you made advancing. But when you look at the indicator numbers, whether it's unemployment, whether it's home ownership, whether it's wealth, since 1964, we have not improved. In fact, we've fallen further behind. So it's like a magic trick. We give it to you and take it away. See? So the reality is, we have an enemy. That is white supremacy, and white supremacy just ain't a system. It's people operating a system that'll smile in your face, but they don't want to take your place. They ain't. I know OJ said backstabbers. They was talking about our people, but you got people that systematically calculate and work out the numbers. They now with these computers, they work out the algorithms to produce. You know what I mean? They skillful at what they do. And when you start trying to talk about this, they'll call you a conspiracy theorist. But I like what my brother Wesley said. He's not a conspiracy theorist. He's a conspiracy documentarian, because they put everything they do down on paper and in books and in historical documents. So you can research it and show. And if a man has a history of 400 years of setting up these circumstances, whether it's doing things to cause wars, with the sinking of ships, with Pearl Harbor, with all the various nefarious acts that they have committed to justify doing something, the Tuskegee experiment, the polio vaccines, crack cocaine, all the things that they have shown that they're willing to do and have done in recent years, in my lifetime. You and I have witnessed act after act after act to show us that we have an open enemy, but we're not willing to come to them terms, because we can't fathom. The Bible says it like this: you can't fathom the depths of Satan. So we just can't calculate in our nice brain, because we have such a good heart. Y'all know Black people have the most tenderest heart for everybody but ourselves, right? That's why white people are so suspicious of us, because if somebody did to them what they did to us, there's no way in hell they would not be plotting to get back at them. But we don't have that heart. We see people gun down our loved ones, and before they can get in court, we talking about we forgive them. Look at that heart. So the reality is, we got to come to grips that we working against an enemy. And just like when you driving through Chester, especially our younger people, and you from the William Penn or the Bennett or wherever we may be, if you from the east side and you know you got to travel through this part, you gonna travel with a whole nother attitude than if you were sitting where you from, because you know, look, these are enemies, our made up false enemy. They not your enemy, they your brother. That's been made by the enemy, the real enemy, to make you think your brother is your enemy. See? And we act out on those things, but just like we take that attitude towards somebody we don't like, somebody we got beef with, somebody we warring with in our foolish fratricidal conflicts that we do in the Black community, we got to understand that we have a serious enemy that's working night and day systematically to keep 85% of the masses of the people blind, deaf, and dumb, and to keep another 5% quiet so they don't expose what the wicked 10% are doing to rule over the 85%. We got to come to grips with this so that we can fight like we act like we're at war. We need to act like we're at war and not with one another. We need to put the guns down, beat our spears into plowshares and pruning hooks when it comes to each other. And we need to pick up the spear and the mindset and the sword as it pertains to our real enemy and treat one another as we are, brothers and sisters, and understand we got an open enemy, and understand that this enemy has your and my destruction in mind and in heart and in action and in policies that they have implemented. And don't get it twisted. They don't care about their own people either. So you say white people, yeah, it's a wicked 10% that rule over the masses of the planet Earth, and they don't care nothing about the 85% at all, except to suck the blood of the 85% to keep themselves rich and living in luxury. See, this is what we're doing. Yes. Was that Robbie? We have to change our thought pattern. Absolutely. You know, this is something that we got to keep preaching, but we also got to, you know, they say it takes, the social scientists say it takes 21 days to break an old habit and establish a new habit. So the thought patterns that we operating from, we got to discipline ourselves and do some new things in order to establish some new habits just about how we think. See, they say you are what you eat, but you really are what you think. And what you think is programmed by what you take in through your ears, through your eyes, even through what you smell, feel, and touch. These things generate thoughts. So the dominant thought in our mind will produce the set of habits and the activity that we carry out in life. That's why we have to have a change in thought pattern. We got to start reprogramming ourselves. We got to reprogram the way we think. You know, I know they tell y'all, stay away from the Muslims down there. They're going to brainwash you. Well, if I think like a Negro, if I think the way this world trains me to think, I need my brain washed. And I'm saying to us, pick up a book, read, research, study that, just study the history of this world. Just study that, and then study and find some truth about our people. Know who you are, understand that. You know, we said it a few weeks back. History is very important, but most of us are turned off to history, certainly in school, because all we learning is his story. But when you learn about yourself, your people, it brings a certain dignity and pride and understanding of who you are. Heck, we need to just do our research on our family history in America, as far back as we can go. How many of us know who our great-great-grandfather was? See? How many know that? You know, I learned a lot. But a few years back, my aunt and family worked to put a book together on the life of my grandmother. May Allah be pleased with her. She passed just this past June after 103 plus years on the planet. But in her story, she was able to go back, and I learned a lot just about who her mother was, who her grandmother was. Found out her mother was in that great storm in Galveston, Texas. I guess her grandmother lost her life in that, and she was a baby found in that storm. See, her mother was found in the storm as a little baby, and her family took her in and raised her. Now, so it's like, we need, but who was her grandmother? Who was her? See, these things we don't know. Other families come here, they can trace their history all the way back to the motherland, whether it's Ireland, whether it's Europe, whether it's Africa, depending on if you come here and you have your history intact, but somebody cut us off from our history. And this is one of the reasons why we suffer the way we suffer. We may not understand it, but not knowing who you are, where you came from, understanding the root of who you are can cause you cause you not to value who you are. See, all of us, if we had some famous person, quote unquote, in our family, we're gonna lay claim to that. So-and-so, you hear Dr. Umar Johnson talk about Frederick Douglass being in his family. See, you want to lay hold. Somebody, Marvin Gaye, my cousin. LeBron James, my second cousin. See, Malcolm X was my cousin. If this was a truth, wouldn't you talk about it? Yeah, you would, because you take pride in it, right? There's nothing wrong with that. So if you know somebody in your history, or you understand where you come from, you can see that connection of who you are, and you can better chart the course of where you're going. All right. So we need to end white supremacy in our mind, because we need to stop living with white supremacy. And even though the world may still have it, the Bible says, greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. And if you have the knowledge of yourself and the knowledge of your enemy, you can better deal with your enemy. But if you don't have the knowledge of yourself and you don't even know you have an enemy, you have the condition that we have in our community, and we'll never get out of it. But we have knowledge, we have the truth, and we have 400 years of recent history to show us who our enemy is. So we need to wake up, stand up, come together and fight for freedom, justice, and equality, and fight for our own. Fight to produce a future, present, a near future, not distant, for ourselves. Organize our community. Come together on issues that we all care about, and put aside differences that we may care about, but they're not really that important. We'll argue and divide ourselves over little insignificant things. The Bible and the Quran say it like this: we strain over a gnat and we swallow a camel. So because I'm slightly different in my politics, I'm slightly different in my religion, or I got a big difference in religion, I live on this side, I don't like this person, that we'll strain over that. That's why I can't work with them. But then we'll swallow the hypocrisy, or the camel, as the Quran calls it, and be friends with somebody that's low down and no good because they call themselves a Muslim. No, I don't rock with that. She a Christian or he a Muslim, and I can't deal with that one because they're Republican, they're Democrat, they're Kappa, they're Q, they're AKA, they're Delta, they from the East Side, they from all these things we use to divide ourselves. But then we'll be friends with somebody ain't no daggone good just because they identify with the same label I wear. See? No, we got to be more principled than that. We got to be more about the content and not about the exterior label we place on ourselves. So, brothers and sisters, I thank you all that have been watching, who've commented. We got a lot of work to do. And I'm more determined than ever after the painful week that we've had in our city, and now capping off. And I say week because I go back to last Tuesday when my young brother was killed. And now this Tuesday, we have the killing of this brother yesterday, and that brings us to today. So we got to just gird up our loins, call on our God, whatever name you call on him by, and trust in him, and trust in yourself and our ability not just to survive, but to overcome. So thank you all for tuning in. I thank my good brother Pierre, for the platform and the opportunity. We're right about at 7:30, or we are at 7:30. Yeah, we're at 7:30. So thank you all for listening. And as we say, let's keep working. Let's keep striving to change the world one mind at a time. Start with your own mind. And if you change your mind and make it a bright light, you will be able to impact other minds that are in darkness, and we can change the world and make a difference. So may God bless you. Peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Peace. Strong words. Love. Soul. And change. Yeah. This is Big Snoop Dogg. Coming at you live and direct. And I got something to say. You dig? Let's change the world. We know what you love.